You go down to your Start button, left click, go to Run. Should have the words or the letter CMD in there. If they aren't already, just type CMD. Hit OK. It's going to pull up this DOS window. Go to your file folder window now that's open behind. Click in your address line. You want to right click on that line, go ahead and copy that line. Now go back to your DOS window. Now you have a little cursor there. Type CD space. Go to this little C prompt icon in the top left. Right click on it. Go down to Edit. Paste. It should paste that file location string in there. Hit Enter. Now you should have that file string and then another cursor. Is everybody there at this point? So what you should have is the file string that is in this folder. So C, Documents and Settings, Moberry Desktop, Dome2 blank PTM files. So this is what you should have on this command line. So C, Documents and Setting, wherever your folder name, or it's going to be Dome1 blank PTM files if that's the folder you're using. Yeah, it should match whatever the string is on your folder file. It should match that because that's what you just copied. Okay? So here, all lowercase, no spaces. LP create CREATE. DOS is very particular about its spelling. Now go ahead and hit one space. And I can't remember what the starting file was. Oh, I got lucky. Go whatever your starting image number is, the very first image number you have. In this case, it's 1 on this set of files. It's 1. Yours may be something different. You may be like 20,003 or something like that. Whatever that number is that you have, the very first image number, type it in.
It doesn't care about the zeros, right?
Okay, we got that? Space. Now enter, you remember when you changed that GoBat file? In this case, I put in Leanne, whatever you change that name to in your GoBat file, enter that next. So you're going to have the starting number, a space, and then your next name, L-E-A-N-E. And we're going to hit enter. It should run through a string like this, and then it's going to stop.
Oh, wait a minute. So I should be putting in my name, Leanne,
You got it?
and then space again?
So you're going to have LP right here, LP
Yeah.
create, space, starting number 1, space,
Right.
whatever you change that file name to. In your case, was Leanne. And then enter. You should have this run through this big string,
Yeah.
and then it's going to stop. Now, if you go back to your original file folder, you scroll down at the bottom, there should be a new file there called file name, whatever you named it, .lp. So in my case, I have Leanne.lp. A little housekeeping on your files. Remember, you drug all those over and created them on the C drive, so your thumb drives are not going to have the LP file you created, and they're not going to have the PTM file that you created. You want to keep those on your thumb drives, you need to drag them back onto your thumb drives. So right now, you don't have a copy of your PTMs on your thumb drives. Okay?
So how much room does everybody have on their thumb drives? Everyone have enough room already on their thumb drives once they transfer it over?
Yeah, actually,
They
if you
should
guys
have
want
quite a
like,
bit.
yeah.
Oh, you want
Yeah.
more? You know, I'm sure Carl can accommodate you on one.
If there's like an extra one you guys want to make, but you don't have enough room for all 64 image files, we can go ahead and take the image files, create the PTM on the computers back there, and you can just take the PTM file itself without the original images.
And as
So
long
that's
as you
an
have
option as
that,
well.
right. And that allows you to get more of the PTM ones to go back and use with the viewer and to be able to look at some of these things. That's an option too on being able to get more of these images that you can look at and show your bosses that you weren't spending a lot of time doing nothing and looking at it. So does anyone have any questions on how to create these? I know DOS is, gosh, I can't remember DOS, but obviously Harold could, so thank God for Harold here. Anyone have any questions on how to do some of this stuff? You really want to kind of keep it organized into original files and then PTM files. And you know, even if you were going to keep them all on CDs or something later to burn them as documentation, or even as evidence, you really need to make sure you arrange these things in a consistent way in consistent folders. And don't be like me when I name things, I forget what I named them, and then now I got to go through everything to try to remember what I named it. So consistency really is going to help you in the future, and you know, in locating storage of these things, because when you have one or two, that's fine. Once you have a couple hundred, it's going to start wreaking more havoc on you. Any questions from anyone? Any comments?
You have to copy both those files onto the thumb drive, the LP create and the.
You don't have to.
No.
You can have just the PTM file. I just figured if you wanted to redo it later, you know, just go ahead and keep your LP file. You can remake it again using the instructions that apparently didn't work very well.
If
Okay.
we wanted to take a picture tomorrow, we could literally dump it into those files that we currently have, just like.
Yeah, I don't know if you're gonna have
Stuff
enough
in
room to save another 64 images on there, but we could create the PTM file on that computer and
all
then
you
just
do is,
dump
yeah.
the PTM file itself.
I
on
may
there.
just delete what I have
It'll
in
be
today.
You could do that too. Yeah.
Borrow PTM files?
It's yours, yeah. Yeah, we got it to work.
You can copy, if you guys want to share your PTM files with each other,
Delete that whole folder.
what we can do is we can
Copy
create a
another one over.
folder on one of the laptops in there, and then you can just drag and drop the whole folder onto your thumb drive, and that'll give you a bunch of PTM files from different people in this class that created different files. That way, you know, you'll get a range of different things to look at
Yeah,
and play
as long as
with.
there's enough room.
How's that?
Yeah.
And that way you don't really have to create more on some of them unless you really want to look at a particular thing that hasn't been done yet. So that would be a fast way. And because they're only PTM files, it won't be as big as keeping the single images and everything else.
Make that a requirement that before you leave today, have everybody put their PTM onto the drive in there?
Can if we got time, or do it in the
Sure, I
morning.
think
part of the
what
review.
time is the class over today, 5?
5.
Oh, we got plenty of time.
Yeah. So, okay, so you guys all got to work with the DOMs. You made your own PTMs. You guys came back, processed the data. I know DOS is a little bit funky, hard to work with.
Way outdated.
Yeah. Other than DOS, which I know is just the way it is, how did everything work out? I mean, I'd like to hear some suggestions, you know, improve some future stuff. We're going to talk about making domes tomorrow. So this is kind of, you know, these are just our ideas on how to get this stuff going and test it. There's a number of different ways that you can do it. You just need to stick to that theory of fixed lighting positions. So, you know, some things to think about. If you're going to go back to your laboratory and maybe be able to build one of these things, you know, just sort of, you know, how did these things work out for you guys?
I thought it was very interesting. It enhanced a lot of features, you know, wear patterns and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But then I would like to have that cast in front of me to make sure I'm not looking at an artifact that,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know, I started.
Yeah, that's the way
having
I'm
that
running it.
cast
Yeah.
right there.
But even if you didn't have the cast there, remember you have the 64 individual photographs that you can open up any one of those and make sure that what you're seeing on the PTM is on some of those images, because chances are, even if they're in between, you should be able to see some of those markings unless it's very, very, very subtle.
as you go across those 64
Mhm.
combinations, you see the morphology change a little bit
Right,
because
right.
of the shadows.
Right, and remember, it really depends on how you number your lighting positions, whether or not you go up to the top and then down over the other side, or you go around the circle up to a spiral on top. However you do it, you know, that will define, let's say that you want to look at a particular angled image from a particular side. By knowing where the flash is and looking at that position, you should be able to pick out a file or an image from that area out of the 64, shading that particular area. So, I mean, there are certain things that when you're numbering and sequencing your flashes, you have to be aware of if you want to go back and back extrapolate and ensure that you're not getting any artifacts or anything else. So. But other than that, you know, I heard some comments from some of you that I wish you could buy it off the shelf. And so do I. You know, this would have been an easier thing if it was canned. I mean, if you could go to Kinderprint or Searchy or something and said, I want one of these, life would be much easier. Unfortunately, it's not that way right now. Maybe in the future it will be. And the DOS thing is kind of funky, and I know that there are several people that are playing around with looking at kind of a Windows type of application that will run this whole thing. But other than that, I think that, you know, and that's what we heard in several conferences that James has been to, and then I've been to different ones, that it always seems to be the same comment. Well, it's very difficult to build your own, but if it was off the shelf, we'd buy one tomorrow. And that is very true, but, you know, we're government employees. Can't make money, I guess.
We've had a number of police chiefs that are like, where can I get one of these?
Yeah.
Are you guys selling these? I'm like,
Yeah.
Sorry, no.
But you will share the plans with us.
Mhm.
We want to
Yep.
make our own.
Yeah, well, I'll help you as much as I can.
Yeah. You know, I think that in some of this, once we can, if we can get to burn EEPROM chips and stuff, life would be easy. Because the controller box, some of those things are what are you know, it takes a computer nerd to build. You know, once you write the program, then you burn it into an EEPROM or a chip. Once you've done that, I mean, once it's on the board, you're more than halfway home. And that's really most of what you need to do in the program. The other part of it is the camera, and those development kits are available from every manufacturer. You know, there are just some that are more easier to work with than others, but they're all available. They give them to you as you buy their cameras. They'll allow you to use their software development kits. So I mean, all this stuff is available. It's just, you're right, it's a matter of who can put it together so I don't have to deal with it kind of thing. And some of it, you know, you may want to get your hands wet, and some of it you may not. But in building your own, you really get to know the product. You get to know kind of the ins and outs of some of the things, how it works, from the computer to the communications of the camera to the sequencing of the flashes and the merging of all those files. So even though we've talked to Hewlett-Packard about some things, and they talked about making making the PTM files much easier, to where it can just kind of grab your images and boom, you know, just do it rather than having to go through that funky DOS LP create kind of thing. Do it on its own. Just, you know, automatically recognize this and create this, which shouldn't be that bad. And those things, if we find out about them, then we can make them available to everybody else too. So those will be things that are coming down in the future. And with the LED lights and everything, you saw how portable the portable was. And you know, for most people, it's not bad. 3 feet's not bad. But imagine if we could reduce it down to the size of
I meant to show this when you
James's
guys were
woodwork.
back there. We're talking about LEDs. This is basically a life-size scale model of what we want to build for the next portable dome. Okay, so it's really pretty small, pretty compact. I haven't got feet on it yet. And if we can get an LED light that's going to throw the right amount or the right amount of light at this short distance, this is really what we want to go with. And we're going to get rid of that camera mount kind of thing, and basically you just set a tripod next to it and hang it over. As long as that camera doesn't move during the capture of those images, you're fine. So I think this is kind of the size and the scale that we're looking at for the next. It should be adequate to fit any shoe I can think of.
But
And,
do we
you know,
need
most
both
tire
sides?
impressions.
I think, like the one that's in
Yeah,
there,
I've
we
been
have
playing with
legs
that.
on there, and we
The-
can pull them out.
The problem, well, we've got the camera mount on the other one that helps stabilize it. I think if I cut the other half of it off on this, it might be a little wobbly.
Depends on the
So,
length.
yeah, that's something I can play with. We might be able to
Right.
cut it in half.
And that's how mock-ups help you in creating them out of wood, or the first one we did was out of PVC pipe. It kind of shows you where some of the weaknesses and stabilities are, how long you have to have it if it's too short, and you have the flashes over on this side, will it flop everything over, those kinds of things. And so, and it's a lot more inexpensive than to have to engineer it, have it made, and then find out it doesn't work. So, I mean, things like this are very inexpensive, and yet they help you kind of create a product without a great expense and help you design it for stability. Because you don't want to go into that and then find out, uh-oh, I got to change my design after you paid someone to build it.
And I'll be touching on this as I discuss, you know, building your own dome. So, you know, there's a lot of things that didn't really occur to me until we went to actually build it. Like, oh, yeah, we need to change that. That's not really going to work in the real world. So, just the arc, having it pinned into those sides. Well, with the true arc and the radius starts at the pivot point, the pins aren't going to reach because it's arcing away from that. So we had to input a flat area before we started the radius. You know, just small things you don't think about until you actually start to build it and make it work. So some of those things are things, you know, these models and working with it, you can spot really quickly if you start to design them that way.
And we want to hear from you people too, as you build your own or attempt to build your own, and the successes or failures. I think all of us learn from each other on designs and things that make things easier for everybody. You know, we've taken a lot of input from HP and their researchers and different archaeologists and museum curators and everything else. And from that, we kind of build our breadth of knowledge on different areas and how they attack the same problem of a hemisphere. How do they get that hemisphere to map whatever their object they're trying to map? And you know, I think we'd like to hear from everybody. And you know, it'll be it's not that hard, but you know, I know it's kind of, it is easier to buy it off a shelf. But you know, we'll give you all the help we can, and you know, anything that you might need.
So LED lighting and
Mhm.
hemisphere distance, is that just trial and error there, or is there?
That's pretty much the way we've been working it. That the strobes that we got, I purchased about 3 different strobes that were physically about the right size, and then I started looking, just taking photos at different distances with them, with objects, to just see, like, okay, does this look good? This doesn't, da 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 da. And basically, we finally kind of settled on that Vivitar because the size was very convenient for mounting to that, and it threw a good light. It wasn't too far away. It was a nice diffuse. It's got a diffuser built into the lens to kind of give a nice even breadth of light. It's not a spotlight kind of thing. So yeah, basically, you know, I kind of took those and played with them, you know, for a few days to see which ones would probably work the best until we kind of settled on that particular one. With the LED lights, what I'd like to do is if we can get, I found out their light output is dependent on the current that's sent to them. So if we can get some differing currents sent to these, and then I can do the same thing. I know the radius that I would like to work with. If I can mount them on that radius and then apply different currents to them and take a few pictures, I get a good idea of what's going to give me just a good exposure, general exposure for those flashes. At that point, then we can say, okay, I want 8 of these lights wired in sequence to a battery pack at this current level. And it's going to be a lot easier to have somebody build that instead of saying, hey, I just want it this distance, can you figure it out? That seems to be a big problem with going to a company and saying, I want this. If you can give them some technical details on what to build, it seems to help a lot.
Any other questions, comments, or anything else? Okay, before we adjourn for the day, then let's make sure that we kind of copy over all the just the PTM files,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Into a directory. I'll create a folder on
still have the Toshiba open?
Toshiba. No, it's not open, but it'll only take a few seconds
Okay.
to open it, and then we can kind of put everybody's file in there, and if everybody wants to copy them, we'll copy them tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning.
Because we have
Yeah.
another hour left in
To
the
go through
lab
this stuff,
exercise
so.
tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mine doesn't have anything on it, so I don't know if it's worth making a copy for.
Does have something
Let's just say that anyone that wants to share their images,
Yeah, sure.
because some of them
Yeah.
are the same or very similar.
You know, like I said, part of this is finding out what doesn't work.
Right, right. Part of
So,
it
I mean, that's
is,
good to know.
you know, what did you do and why it didn't work, or, you know, some of those things. Like Joe's is white paper in a more lighted area, and it really doesn't have much relief or imaging on it. Plus, it was folded and it wasn't pinned to the ground, so it was very difficult to get some of those things. But I mean, you learn. That's how you learn from a lot of this stuff, what you can and can't do on some of these.
Then if we want to, we can bring something in tomorrow morning, try to photograph again,
Mm-hmm.
if there's time.
Mhm. Sure, sure. And remember, anything that has any kind of relief, you can image. You know, so think of anything from, you know, a bite mark on an apple to, you know, anything that you want to kind of look at more of a three-dimensional imaging sort of thing on it. So it's not really limited to just shoe impressions, tire track, or even dental stuff. I mean, you know, if you're trying to capture a tool mark of some kind, like the knife edge or something else. I mean, there's a lot of different objects and that you could use to capture, even fabric from a shirt or something. I mean, it gives you, the sky's the limit on these things. And the more you use of it, then it'll help you kind of think, well, geez, I could use that for this different application. And I believe that it would really lend itself to a lot of different things, including even bloodstain interpretation in some of these things.
Perhaps even raised printing, like intaglio printing found on currency,
Oh.
traveler checks.
Sure.
Yeah, that might work. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You brought a lot of those? Huh?
Serial number restoration.
Yes.
Yeah,
But you need a
that could
smaller
be.
scale.
Yeah.
You want
Okay.
to head over there?
Yeah. Let's
So I guess until tomorrow.